This week I will show you some progress I've made in the garden. When I moved in here, I quickly discovered that this garden had been a dumping ground for the previous owners, and I found plastics, broken glass, materials left out for the elements for decades, and just a lot of garbage. And the garden, just like the house, hadn't been looked after. So when I moved in here, I rented a container to get rid of some of the junk, but I filled it up in just one day and quickly realized I would have to do this in small steps, as it would require a lot of time. The garden is 4,000 square meters with overgrown shrubs and a small forest, and every inch of it needs some attention. Even though I really need to put all my energy on the house, I couldn't help but throw myself into working in the garden earlier this year when we had the first few sunny spring days in Sweden. I decided to challenge myself to not spend too much time on the garden and instead do small things every day for a whole month, and I shared the journey on my Instagram page. Then I would still make a big difference, but it would be a small sidetrack I could afford to do. Turned out it wasn't as easy as I thought, because of two reasons. Every task needed to be done took more time to do than planned. And secondly, those few sunny days was not a sign that spring was here. In fact, there were two storms, one of them a snowstorm, and it was hard to get enough sunlight hours after work before we changed into summertime in Sweden after the spring equinox. So it was hard to keep up the challenge, and it took away my focus of the house. But at least I made a difference, and to be able to clean up and tame the garden, I do have to keep working on this for years.
I could sit around and wait all day. You lay easy on my mind.
One day I did a cooperation with my neighbors and removed a lot of the overgrown shrubs and dying trees between our properties. This did wonders to the garden. It opened it up and let in sunlight again and views of the surrounding landscape, and now I can see the neighbor's horse and pony that graze next to my house on the other side of the fence. This work and the clearing of shrubs that my volunteers did earlier this year resulted in a lot of branches I had to get rid of. We took many turns to the recycling site, I think at least 40 to 50. Which on one side is only 10 minutes away, but it was a shame to not use it in the garden. And I prefer not to burn it in a bonfire as it's so wasteful. So I decided to try to make a dead hedge or a dead fence. It's the same thing. It's basically a hedge made of branches and sticks. It's great for biodiversity. It creates a wonderful habitat full of life, hiding places and nesting habitats for small creatures, as well as food for insects. And you can keep adding to it every time you prune a tree or cut back a shrub as it shrinks when it decays.
What was it they used to say? Seeking you will find. There is nothing in you that is fading. All you ever do is shine. You are brighter all the time. And I don't wanna waste it on anybody. Take it with anybody.
I've made a long list of different qualities and programming I want in the garden in the future. And this is the first rough sketch I made to start the planning. I'm only making one step this year to make the northern side of the house tidier and prepare the first flower bed. Then in the future I would like to move the entryway to a different part of the garden, to not use the sunny side and the side that also requires the longest way to the garage. Then I could use that space for a kitchen garden and a greenhouse. Another big dream is to have a natural pool with plants on one side and a swimming part in the other, and a waterfall, a nice deck next to it, and a Swedish-style pavilion for yoga, meditation and reading, general relaxing. And of course a meadow of fruit trees with the wildflowers and space for the chickens to walk underneath them, both in the northern and southern corners. Also new pathways and a long pergola stretching between the pool and the kitchen garden. And I'm not a big fan of lawns. If I could have it my way, I would only have flowers, so I'm planning many flower beds and just different spaces and nooks for different types of relaxing activities. But to be able to make this Garden of Eden, I need new plants in thousands. So I decided to invest in a cheap greenhouse that I can use for a few years for propagation and to sow perennials, and also start growing some vegetables. I know it's not pretty, but at least it's functional and it's a good investment for my plants. During this challenge, I propagated black and red currant bushes from old plants from another garden. But I also sow my first batches of perennials and vegetables to enjoy the summer. And I planted some bulbs in the garden I bought a few months ago for Christmas. If you enjoyed this video and want to support my work, you can like, write a comment and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications if you do. See you in 2 weeks.